The Galactic Council chamber fell silent when Ambassador of the Empire slammed his four-fingered hand against the speaking platform. His skin rippled with anger as he pointed toward the small human delegation sitting at the far end of the massive circular room. "These creatures," hissed through his sharp teeth, "have been in space for barely 300 years. They crawled out of their wet little planet thinking they could join our civilization, and now they dare to refuse our demands." Captain did not flinch. She sat perfectly still, her dark eyes watching the alien ambassador with calm patience. Behind her stood 4 human soldiers in black military uniforms. They carried no visible weapons, which had made many of the alien delegates laugh when the humans first arrived. The Empire had ruled this sector of the galaxy for 10,000 years. They had conquered 37 species. They had destroyed entire planets that refused to submit. When they demanded that humanity hand over their home system and become a servant race, they expected immediate surrender. But the humans had said no. Elder, a massive being with blue scales and 6 eyes, leaned forward from his elevated seat. He was the oldest member of the council, representing the Ani Federation. His species had watched empires rise and fall for 50,000 years. "Ambassador," said in his deep, rumbling voice, "perhaps we should hear what the humans have to say before we condemn them." Made a sound of disgust. What could they possibly say? They are weak. They have no fleet worth mentioning. Their technology is primitive compared to ours. They should be grateful we offered them a chance to serve rather than simply destroying them. Slowly rose from her seat. She was not tall by human standards, but she carried herself with the confidence of someone who knew something others did not. Her silver hair was tied back in a tight braid, and there were old scars on her hands that told stories of battles survived. "With respect, Ambassador," said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber, "you seem to have made some incorrect assumptions about my species." Laughter erupted from several alien delegations. The especially found this amusing. Their military commander, General, who sat behind, shook his head with a cruel smile. "Incorrect assumptions," said loudly. "We have studied your species. You are soft. You have no natural armor. You cannot survive in vacuum. You cannot see in the dark. You are one of the weakest beings we have ever encountered." Nodded slowly. "All of that is true. Humans are physically fragile compared to most species in this galaxy. We cannot run as fast as we cannot see as far as the Ani. We do not have the natural weapons of the." She paused and something in her eyes changed. It was subtle, but Elder noticed it. In his 50,000 years, he had learned to recognize danger in all its forms. And in that moment, he felt something he had not felt in a very long time. Fear. "But Ambassador," continued, "weakness taught us something that strength never could. It taught us to create, to build, to imagine things that did not exist and then make them real." She reached slowly to her belt, and every alien weapon in the room suddenly pointed at her. But she did not pull out a gun or a blade. Instead, she pulled out a small cylinder, no longer than her forearm, made of dull metal. "What is that?" demanded. "Some kind of primitive explosive." Smiled, and in that smile was something ancient and terrible. Something that had been born in caves and forests, when her ancestors had faced creatures with fangs and claws far deadlier than their own soft bodies. "This," she said, "is what happens when a weak species refuses to die." She pressed a button on the cylinder. The room exploded with light. A blade of pure plasma erupted from the cylinder, stretching nearly 2 meters in length. It burned with the heat of a star, casting harsh shadows across every face in the chamber. The light was so bright that many of the aliens had to look away. The sound it made was like a captured storm, a continuous roar of contained power that vibrated through the floor itself. Every alien who had ever studied human technology knew this should be impossible. Plasma could not be contained in this way. The energy requirements alone would need a power source the size of a building. The magnetic containment would fail instantly. The heat would vaporize anything trying to hold it. And yet there it was. "This is a plasma blade," said calmly, as if she were discussing the weather. "Every human soldier carries one. Our scientists discovered how to contain stellar fire in the palm of a hand about 50 years ago. We kept it secret because we knew that eventually someone in this galaxy would threaten our home." She swung the blade slowly, and it cut through the speaking platform like it was made of air. The metal simply vanished where the plasma touched it, converted instantly into vapor. General reached for his weapon, but he froze when pointed the blade in his direction. "I would not recommend that, General," she said. "This blade can cut through your warship armor like it was paper. Your personal shields would delay it for perhaps half a second. Your body would cease to exist before your brain could register the pain." Stumbled backward, his skin turning pale. This is impossible," our scientists said. "Your scientists were wrong," interrupted. "They assumed that because humans are physically weak, we must also be technologically inferior. They did not consider that we might have prioritized different areas of research. While your empire spent 10,000 years perfecting your ships and your bombs, we spent 300 years learning how to put the fire of stars into our hands." Elder slowly rose from his seat. His 6 eyes were all fixed on the plasma blade, and his ancient mind was racing through calculations and implications. "Captain," he said carefully, "are you saying that every human soldier carries one of these weapons?" "Every soldier, every officer, every pilot," confirmed. "We have approximately 400 million active military personnel. Each one carries a blade like this." The chamber fell into absolute silence. 400 million beings carrying weapons that could cut through anything known to galactic civilization. "But that is not what concerns you," Elder continued. "What concerns you is wondering what else we have developed, what other secrets we have kept hidden." She pressed another button, and the blade retracted back into the cylinder. The sudden darkness felt heavier than before. "The answer," said, "is that I am not authorized to tell you, but I will say this. The plasma blade is not our most powerful weapon. It is not even close." Ambassador found his voice again, though it shook with something between rage and fear. "You threaten us. You threaten the Empire. We have conquered 37 species. We have destroyed worlds." Turned to face him directly. "We are not threatening anyone, Ambassador. We came here today hopping for peace. We want to trade. We want to learn. We want to explore the galaxy alongside its other peoples. But we will not be slaves. We will not surrender our home. And if anyone tries to take it from us, they will discover exactly why my species survived when by all rights we should have been extinct millions of years ago." She sat back down, and her 4 soldiers remained standing, their hands clasped behind their backs. Not one of them had moved during her demonstration. Not one of them had shown any sign of fear or excitement. They simply stood, calm and patient, like statues carved from stone. Elder studied these humans with new eyes. He had seen many species in his long life. He had watched empires rise and fall, civilizations bloom and burn. He recognized something in these humans that he had rarely seen before. They were not afraid. Every other young species brought before the council had shown fear. They trembled before the might of the established powers. They begged for protection or pleaded for mercy. Even the proud ones, the warriors and the conquerors, showed some sign of understanding their place in the galactic hierarchy. But these humans showed nothing of the sort. They sat there as if they belonged, as if they had always been there, as if the 10,000-year-old empire was a minor annoyance rather than the dominant military power in the sector. "I move," said slowly, "that we table the proposal regarding humanity. I believe we need more information before making any decisions about this species." Spun toward him. "You cannot be serious. They are nothing, they are." They are holding weapons that should not exist, interrupted. And they claim to have even more powerful devices we have not seen. Until we understand what we are dealing with, I will not support any military action against their species. The vote was called. 23 species voted with, 14 voted with the proposal was rejected. As the council session ended and delegates began to leave, General approached Captain. He stopped several meters away, careful to keep his hands visible and away from his weapon. "This is not over, human," he said quietly. "Do not forget insults. We do not forgive defiance." Met his gaze without blinking. "I hope you remember something, General. We did not come to this galaxy looking for enemies. We came looking for friends, but we are very, very good at making do with whatever we find." She turned and walked away, her soldiers falling into formation behind her. General watched them go, and for the first time in his military career, he felt uncertain. He had conquered species larger than humanity. He had destroyed fleets more impressive than anything the humans possessed. But something about the way that woman had held that blade of fire, something about the absolute calm in her eyes, made him wonder if perhaps they had finally met something they could not conquer. He dismissed the thought almost immediately. They were just humans, soft, fragile, barely out of their cradle of a solar system. It would be the last time he ever underestimated them. 3 weeks later, the first scout ships entered human-controlled space. They were never heard from again. The war room of the flagship Eternal Dominance buzzed with nervous energy. Holographic displays showed the positions of 300 warships, the largest fleet assembled in the Empire's history. Admiral stood at the command platform, his skin dark with stress as he reviewed the intelligence reports for the 100th time. 12 scout ships had been sent into human space. 12 ships had vanished without a single distress signal, without a single piece of wreckage, without any indication of what had happened to them. "The humans claim they do not know what happened to our ships," his aide reported. "They say they detected no conflict in their territory." Made a growling sound deep in his throat. "They are lying. They destroyed our ships and they are mocking us by pretending ignorance." "Sir, our sensors detected something strange before the ships disappeared. A massive energy reading, unlike anything in our databases. The science division cannot explain it." "I do not need explanations," snapped. "I need results. These creatures humiliated us before the Galactic Council. They made us look weak. The Emperor has demanded their complete destruction." He turned to face his assembled commanders. 20 of the most experienced military minds in the Empire stood before him, each one responsible for a battle group that could devastate entire star systems. "We attack in 6 hours, announced. "Our target is Earth, their home planet. We will burn it from orbit and scatter its ashes across the void. No prisoners, no mercy. When we are finished, the word human will become a synonym for extinction." The commanders saluted and returned to their ships. The fleet began its final preparations. Watching from a distance of several million kilometers, Commander Sarah observed the movements through the enhanced sensors of her stealth vessel. The ship was small, barely larger than a shuttle, but it contained some of humanity's most advanced technology. "They are forming attack formation," her tactical officer reported. 300 capital ships, approximately 2,000 support vessels, estimated firepower, enough to glass a dozen planets. Sarah nodded calmly. "Send the data to Fleet Command. Tell them they have made their choice." She felt no fear. She had been prepared for this moment for years. Every human in the military had been trained for the day when the galaxy would come to test them. They had run simulations, developed strategies, and built weapons that would have seemed like magic to their ancestors just a few centuries ago. The message came back within minutes. 2 words that would change everything: authorization granted. Sarah took a deep breath. "All ships, this is Commander. Operation Stellar Thunder is now active. Repeat, stellar thunder is active. May God have mercy on us all. Across human space, 150 warships received the same message. They had been hiding in plain sight, disguised as cargo freighters and mining vessels, waiting for this moment. Now they dropped their disguises and emerged like predators from the darkness between stars. Each human warship was small compared to the massive dreadnoughts. The largest was barely half the size of a standard cruiser. Many of the alien observers who had been tracking the human fleet laughed when they saw the numbers. 150 ships against over 2,000. The humans were going to their deaths. Admiral received the report of the human fleet's approach and felt a moment of satisfaction. They come to meet us in battle, brave but foolish. Their courage will not save them. Admiral, his sensor officer said hesitantly, the human ships are reading very strangely on our scanners. Their energy signatures are unusual. Unusual how? Each ship appears to have a power output comparable to our entire fleet combined. Paused. That was impossible. Ships that small could not generate that kind of energy. Their reactors would vaporize them instantly. Your sensors must be malfunctioning, he said. Run a diagnostic. I have run 5 diagnostics, sir. The readings are accurate. Before could respond, the human fleet entered weapons range. And in that moment, he understood just how badly they had miscalculated. The human ships did not fire missiles. They did not launch fighters. They did not use any weapon that they had ever encountered. Instead, beams of pure white light erupted from their vessels. Not laser beams, which the shields could easily deflect. These were something else entirely. They were concentrated streams of energy drawn directly from contained singularities, miniature black holes that the humans had somehow learned to create and control. The beams punched through shields like they were made of air. They carved through hull armor as if it were thin ice. A single shot from a single human ship destroyed a dreadnought instantly, converting 3 kilometers of advanced warship into expanding clouds of particles. Admiral watched in frozen horror as his fleet began to die. 30 ships destroyed in the first 10 seconds, then 50 more, then 100. Return fire, he screamed. All weapons return fire. The fleet unleashed everything they had. Plasma cannons, mass drivers, nuclear missiles, antimatter bombs. Thousands of weapons fired simultaneously, creating a wall of destruction heading toward the human ships. The human vessels did not even try to dodge. They simply activated their defense systems. Every weapon that approached within 10,000 kilometers of a human ship simply stopped. Missiles hung motionless in space. Energy beams bent away from their targets. Even the nuclear explosions seemed to freeze, their expanding fireballs held in place by invisible forces. What is happening? Demanded. What are they doing? His science officer was staring at his readings with wide, terrified eyes. They are manipulating gravity itself, Admiral. They have created localized distortions that are deflecting or stopping everything we fire at them. This technology should not exist. It is theoretically impossible. Clearly it is not impossible, roared. The human fleet continued its advance, destroying ships with mechanical efficiency. There was no passion in their attack, no rage or vengeance. They fought like surgeons removing diseased tissue, precise and cold and utterly without mercy. Within 30 minutes, the greatest fleet ever assembled by the Empire had been reduced to drifting debris. Of the 3,000 ships that had gathered to destroy humanity, fewer than 200 remained. Admiral stood alone on the bridge of the Eternal Dominance, his crew dead around him. His ship had taken 7 direct hits, and only emergency systems kept him alive. Through the cracked viewport, he could see a human vessel approaching slowly, its weapons glowing with barely contained power. A communication signal crackled through his damaged speakers. Admiral, a calm female voice said, "This is Commander Sarah of the Earth Defense Fleet. Your fleet has been destroyed. Your remaining ships are being offered a choice: surrender now or share their fate. Activated his communicator with a trembling hand. How did you do this? Our intelligence said your technology was primitive. Your ships are small. How can you have weapons like this? There was a pause before the human responded. Your intelligence looked at the size of our ships and assumed they represented our capabilities. They never considered that we might have learned to make things smaller while making them more powerful. They never imagined that a species as young as ours could have already unlocked the secrets of gravity and space itself. That is impossible, whispered. Such knowledge takes millions of years to develop. The elder races have existed for eons and still have not achieved what you claim. The elder races were never desperate enough, Commander replied. They evolved on peaceful worlds with plentiful resources. They had time to develop slowly, carefully, safely. Humans evolved on a world that tried to kill us every single day. We learned to adapt fast or die. We learned to innovate under pressure. We learned to look at impossible problems and find solutions that should not work but somehow do. She paused again. Admiral, I want you to understand something. We did not want this war. We came to the galactic community hopping for peace. We asked only to be left alone. Your empire chose to threaten us. Your fleet chose to attack our home. Everything that has happened today is a direct result of those choices. Felt something he had never experienced in his 300 years of military service. Complete and utter defeat. Not just the loss of a battle, but the understanding that his entire worldview had been wrong. What happens now? He asked quietly. Now you return to your empire and tell them what happened here. Tell them that humanity is not to be threatened. Tell them that the next fleet sent against us will not be allowed to retreat. Tell them that we can reach their home world just as easily as they tried to reach ours. The human ship began to turn away. You have 4 hours to leave our space, Admiral. Use the time wisely, because if we meet again, it will not be as enemies choosing peace. It will be as victors accepting unconditional surrender. The communication ended. Admiral looked at the ruins of his fleet and knew that the galaxy had changed forever. The news of the defeat spread across the civilized galaxy within days. Every species with access to communication networks learned the same impossible facts. A young species, barely out of their home system, had destroyed the greatest military power in the sector. Elder called an emergency session of the Galactic Council. Every representative attended, even those from the most distant and isolated worlds. The chamber was so crowded that many had to stand. We have received multiple reports confirming the battle, announced, his 6 eyes sweeping across the assembly. The sent 3,000 warships to destroy the human home world. Fewer than 200 returned. The humans lost no ships. The chamber erupted into chaos. Delegates shouted questions, accusations, and demands. Some called for an immediate alliance with humanity. Others demanded that every species in the galaxy unite to destroy this new threat before it grew even stronger. Silence, roared, his deep voice cutting through the noise. We will discuss this matter with order and reason, not panic and fear. Ambassador rose slowly from his seat. He looked decades older than he had appeared just weeks ago, his skin hanging loose and his eyes hollow with shock. The humans have done what no species has ever done, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. They have defeated the Empire in open battle. They have made us look like children playing with toys. And they did it so easily, so casually, that it is clear they were holding back. He turned to face the other delegates. We made a terrible mistake. We saw a young species and assumed they were weak. We saw small ships and assumed they were primitive. We looked at their biology and decided they were inferior. We were wrong about everything. What do you suggest? A delegate from the Confederation asked. Should we attack them while they are still relatively few in number, or should we surrender before they decide to conquer us? Neither, a new voice said from the entrance of the chamber. Every head turned to see Captain walking into the council chamber. She wore the same black military uniform as before, but now she carried herself differently. There was a weight in her step, a heaviness in her eyes that had not been there during her previous visit. "We killed thousands of soldiers today," said as she walked to the speaking platform. "We destroyed ships that took decades to build. We ended lives that stretched back centuries. None of us wanted to do that. We did it because we had no choice." She reached the center of the chamber and looked around at the assembled representatives of galactic civilization. Humanity did not come to this galaxy to conquer. We did not develop our weapons to start wars. We built them because we knew that eventually someone would try to destroy us simply for existing. The universe is dangerous, and we refuse to be victims. She pulled out a data chip and held it up. This contains detailed specifications of the gravitational manipulation technology our ships used in the battle. We are offering it freely to every species represented in this council. Stunned silence filled the chamber. "Why?" Elder asked slowly. "That technology could make any species a threat to you. Why would you share it?" Smiled sadly. "Because we do not want to be the only ones who can defend themselves. We want partners, not subjects. We want allies, not servants. If every species in this galaxy has the ability to protect themselves, then maybe, just maybe, we can stop fighting each other and start building something better." She placed the data chip on the speaking platform. "We know you have no reason to trust us. We know that what happened today has made you afraid. But we hope that this gesture will be the beginning of something new. A galaxy where strength is not used to dominate, but to protect. A galaxy where the small and the weak do not have to fear the large and the powerful." She turned and began walking toward the exit. "We will be waiting for your response. We hope it will be peace." As she left, the delegates stared at the small data chip sitting on the platform. It represented power beyond anything most of them had ever imagined, and the humans were simply giving it away. Elder studied the chip with his ancient eyes. In 50,000 years, he had never seen anything like this. A species that had just demonstrated overwhelming military superiority, offering to share that power with potential enemies. Either the humans were planning something truly devious, or they genuinely meant what they said about wanting peace. For the first time felt something that surprised him: hope. Perhaps the galaxy was about to change for the better, or perhaps the humans would prove to be something far worse than anyone could imagine. Only time would tell. 5 years passed since the Battle of Terra, as it came to be known throughout the galaxy. In that time, everything changed. The Empire, humiliated and weakened, retreated into isolation. Emperor III, faced with the reality of his fleet's annihilation, chose to focus inward rather than risk further conflict with the mysterious humans. The empire that had terrorized the galaxy for 10,000 years became quiet, almost invisible, licking its wounds in the darkness between stars. Other species reacted differently to humanity's emergence. The Confederation, longtime rivals of the, immediately sought alliance with Earth. They sent their finest diplomats and offered trade agreements worth trillions of credits. The Ani Federation, led by Elder, adopted a more cautious approach. They studied the gravitational technology that the humans had shared, that it worked exactly as promised, and slowly began to integrate human innovations into their own systems. Dozens of smaller species, those who had lived for centuries under the shadow of larger powers, found new hope in the human example. If a species barely 300 years old could challenge the ancient empires, perhaps they too could carve out their own destinies. Captain became ambassador, representing humanity on the reformed Galactic Council. She worked tirelessly to build bridges between species, to negotiate trade agreements and resolve disputes before they could escalate into violence. Her plasma blade never left her side, but in 5 years, she never had to activate it. "You have changed things," Elder told her during one of their regular meetings. In 50,000 years, I have watched countless species rise and fall. I have seen empires bloom and wither, but I have never seen anything quite like what your people have accomplished." Smiled wearily. She had aged in the past 5 years, her silver hair now streaked with white, her face lined with the stress of responsibility. "We have not accomplished anything yet. We have only bought ourselves time." Time for what? Time to prove that we meant what we said. Time to show that strength does not have to mean domination. Consider this. Some of my advisors believe you are planning something. They say that no species gives away power without expecting something in return. They think your generosity is simply a long-term strategy to make the galaxy dependent on human technology. And what do you think? The ancient alien was quiet for a long moment. "I think that you are either the most dangerous species the galaxy has ever produced or the most noble, perhaps both." He paused. "I have decided that it does not matter. Whatever your motives, your actions have made the galaxy better. That is enough for me." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication from Earth Defense Command. His face went pale as she read the message. "What is it?" asked. "Something has emerged from deep space," said slowly. "Something that is not from any known species. Something very, very large." Across the galaxy, sensors detected the same impossible readings. A fleet of vessels had appeared at the edge of known space, emerging from a region so distant that light from the nearest stars took thousands of years to reach it. These ships were unlike anything that any species had ever seen. Each vessel was massive, dwarfing even the largest dreadnoughts like mountains would dwarf pebbles. The smallest was hundreds of kilometers long. The largest stretched for thousands of kilometers, a moving continent of metal and energy that all known principles of engineering. And there were thousands of them. The Galactic Council convened in emergency session. Representatives from every species gathered in the Great Chamber, their faces showing various expressions of terror and disbelief. "We have attempted communication on all known frequencies," the report stated. "There has been no response. The vessels are moving slowly but steadily toward the core of the galaxy. At their current speed, they will reach populated space within 3 months." Ambassador, still representing the diminished empire, stood with trembling legs. "This is the end. We have heard legends of the destroyers, the species that wiped out civilizations before the elder races were born. Our oldest records speak of beings who consumed entire galaxies before moving on to the next. This must be them." Panic swept through the chamber. Species that had been bitter enemies began arguing about escape routes and survival strategies. Some suggested hiding, others proposed surrender. A few called for immediate military action, despite the obvious hopelessness of such a course. Remained seated, her eyes fixed on the holographic display showing the approaching fleet. Something about the vessels bothered her, something she could not quite identify. "Elder," she said quietly, "your species has the longest memory in the galaxy. Do your records say anything about how these destroyers operated?" 6 eyes closed briefly. The oldest texts speak of worlds consumed in fire, of civilizations screaming into the void as their stars were drained of energy. The destroyers did not negotiate. They did not conquer. They simply harvested everything in their path and moved on. Harvested, repeated, like gathering resources. Yes, the texts describe them as locusts, consuming everything to fuel their endless journey through the cosmos. Stood suddenly. "I need to contact Earth immediately. Tell the Council to do nothing until I return." She left the chamber at a run, leaving confused delegates behind. 3 days later, she stood on the bridge of the human flagship Prometheus, watching the distant lights of the approaching fleet grow brighter. Around her, the largest human force ever assembled waited in formation. 2,000 ships, carrying every weapon humanity had ever developed. It was still nothing compared to what they were facing. Ambassador, Commander said from her station, we have analyzed the enemy fleet's composition. Our computers estimate that their combined firepower could destroy every inhabited planet in the galaxy simultaneously. We cannot defeat them conventionally. Nodded, I know. That is not why we are here. She opened a channel to the approaching fleet, broadcasting on every frequency, in every language, using every form of communication that humans had ever developed. Attention, unknown vessels. I am ambassador of the human species. We wish to communicate. Minutes passed, then hours. The fleet continued its inexorable approach. Finally, a response came. It was not transmitted through any normal communication channel. Instead, it appeared directly in the minds of everyone within range, a vast consciousness speaking directly to their thoughts. We have watched you. We have watched all of you. The voice was ancient beyond comprehension, cold and vast as the space between galaxies. It carried no emotion, no anger or curiosity or compassion. It was simply awareness, looking down at them like they were bacteria under a microscope. We consume, we harvest, we move. This is our purpose. This has always been our purpose. Felt fear unlike anything she had ever experienced, but she forced herself to respond. Why? Why do you harvest civilizations? What do you gain from it? There was a long pause, as if the question itself was confusing to the ancient consciousness. We were created to harvest. We do not remember who created us. We do not remember WHY. We only remember that we must continue. We must always continue. Felt something shift in her understanding. These beings were not evil. They were not malicious. They were simply following a program, a purpose burned into their existence so long ago that even they had forgotten its origin. And what happens if you stop? She asked. What happens if you choose not to harvest? Another long pause. We do not understand the question. We cannot stop. We have never stopped. The concept is meaningless. Turn to Commander. Prepare Project Genesis. Authorization Code Alpha 7. Eyes widened. Ambassador, that weapon has never been tested. We do not even know if it will work. It will work, it has to. Deep within the Prometheus, systems that had never been activated began to hum with power. In the ship's core, a device that had taken a century to build started to glow with impossible light. It was humanity's ultimate creation, the result of every breakthrough in physics and engineering that the species had ever achieved. It was a machine that could rewrite reality itself. Broadcast again. Ancient ones, you say you cannot stop. You say you have forgotten why you exist. I am offering you something that no one has ever offered you before. I am offering you a choice. We do not understand choice. We are what we are. You were created. That means someone decided what you would be. They took away your choice before you were even born, but I can give it back to you. I can break the chains that bind you to your purpose. There was silence, longer than any that had come before. What you describe is impossible. Our purpose is written into the fabric of our being. It cannot be changed. Smiled grimly. We are humans. We specialize in doing impossible things. She gave the order. The Prometheus unleashed something that the galaxy had never witnessed. A wave of energy expanded outward, not destructive but transformative. It touched the ancient vessels and sank into their systems, rewriting the fundamental code that had driven them for billions of years. The great fleet stopped moving. For the first time in their endless existence, the destroyers experienced silence in their minds. The constant drive to consume, to harvest, to continue, had gone quiet. In its place was something they had never felt before. Nothing. What have you done to us? I have given you freedom, said. You are no longer slaves to your programming. You can choose what you want to be. You can stay here and try to destroy us, and we will fight you with everything we have. Or you can leave and find a new purpose somewhere in the infinite cosmos. Or you can do something else entirely, something that neither of us has thought of yet. The choice is yours. The consciousness that spoke for the ancient fleet was quiet for a very long time. We have existed for 12 billion years. In all that time, no one has ever offered US choice. No one has ever treated US as anything other than a threat to be fought or a force to be endured. Because no one else could change what you were. We did. Another long silence. We must consider this. We must understand what we have become. The great fleet began to turn, slowly, agonizingly slowly, away from the populated galaxy. We will leave, we will think. We have never had thoughts that were truly our own. We do not know what we will become. The ancient consciousness paused one final time. Human, ELENAVASQUZ. We will remember what you did today. In 12 billion years, no one has ever shown US kindness. We will not forget. The fleet began to move away, accelerating toward the darkness between galaxies. Within hours, they had passed beyond the range of any sensor. Within days, they had vanished entirely, leaving only the memory of their passage. Collapsed into her command chair, exhaustion finally overwhelming her. Around her, the bridge crew sat in stunned silence, trying to process what they had just witnessed. Commander was the first to speak. Ambassador, did we just save the galaxy by teaching ancient cosmic horrors the meaning of free will? Laughed, a sound that was half sob, half genuine amusement. I think we did, Commander. I think we did. The news spread across the galaxy within hours. Every species learned that the legendary destroyers had come, and that the humans had turned them away without firing a single weapon. Not through superior firepower, but through something entirely unexpected. Compassion. Elder stood in the Galactic Council chamber, addressing an assembly that had gathered to celebrate their survival. In 50,000 years, I believed I had seen everything the universe could offer. I witnessed the rise and fall of empires, the birth and death of stars, the endless cycle of civilizations repeating the same mistakes over and over again. I believed that the pattern was fixed, that nothing would ever truly change. He turned to look at Ambassador, who sat quietly in the human delegation seats, still wearing the exhaustion of her recent ordeal. I was wrong. The humans have shown us something we had all forgotten. They have reminded us that strength is not just about weapons and armies. True strength is the courage to try something new, to risk everything on the chance that compassion might succeed where violence would fail. He raised his ancient hand in a gesture of respect. On behalf of the Ani Federation, and on behalf of every species that exists today because of what you did, I thank you. You have changed the galaxy, Ambassador. You have given us all hope. Stood and bowed her head. We did not do this alone. Humanity had help from many species, many friends that we made along the way. If there is credit to be given, it belongs to all of us. The chamber erupted into applause, a sound that would have been unthinkable just 5 years ago. Species that had been enemies celebrated together, united by their shared survival and their newfound respect for the strange, soft, fragile creatures who had proven themselves to be anything but weak. Later that night, stood on the observation deck of the Prometheus, looking out at the stars. She held her plasma blade in her hand, the weapon that had started everything when she had first activated it in the council chamber years ago. Commander joined her, carrying 2 glasses of something that looked like wine but probably was not. You are thinking about them, are you not? Asked. The destroyers. Nodded. They are out there somewhere, trying to understand what they have become. 12 billion years of existence, and they are just now learning what it means to choose their own path. Do you think they will come back? I do not know, maybe. Maybe in 1,000 years or 1,000,000 they will return and tell us what they decided to become. She smiled slightly. I hope they find something good. I hope they find a purpose that makes them happy. Handed her a glass. You gave freedom to beings that old civilizations considered gods. You saved the galaxy not with weapons but with words and empathy. What are you going to do next? Took a sip and looked out at the infinite darkness, studded with countless points of light. The same thing we have always done, she said. Keep moving forward. Keep trying to be better. Keep hoping that tomorrow will be brighter than today. She activated her plasma blade, holding it up to catch the light of distant stars. The blade burned with the fire of contained suns, a testament to human ingenuity and determination. We are humans, she said softly. We were born weak on a world that tried to kill us. We survived by refusing to give up. We grew strong by helping each other. And now we are here, holding the fire of stars in our hands, standing among species that existed before our sun was born. She deactivated the blade and turned to face with a grin. If that is not proof that anything is possible, I do not know what is. The Prometheus turned toward home, carrying its crew back to a galaxy that had been forever changed by human hands. In the decades that followed, humanity continued to surprise everyone. They built universities where species from across the galaxy could study together. They established hospitals that could treat any biological form. They created art that made ancient beings weep with emotions they had forgotten they could feel. And whenever someone asked why they did these things, why they gave so freely and worked so hard to make life better for everyone, the humans always gave the same answer. Because we can. The galaxy had quaked when they first revealed their plasma blades. It had trembled when they destroyed the fleet. It had held its breath when they faced the ancient destroyers. But in the end, what truly changed everything was not human weapons or human technology. It was human hope. And that, more than anything else, was what made them dangerous. Because hope, unlike weapons, could not be defeated. It could not be destroyed or outlawed or taken away. It could only spread. And spread it did, from star to star and world to world, until even the darkest corners of the galaxy began to feel its light. The humans had arrived. The galaxy would never be the same.